Let's see here.
This is going to be awesome. Kirby, coming at you.
Good to be with you guys.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I was trying to dig up some dirt on you, Kirby, to bring up here, but I couldn't find any.
Well, you must not have looked very hard.
Well, I asked Ed Wernicke, and he didn't tell me anything, so
Right. Did he tell you the story of when I gave him the police car, the model police car?
yes, he told me.
Yeah. Wait.
Yeah, you should tell everybody.
Yeah. So when I was so my dad pastored in Hibbing, Minnesota, and Ed Warnicki was at the church there. And when he was a police officer, and when I was about 4 or 5 years old, probably, I got a model car, a police car, and I put it together, and I thought I want to go give this to him, and so I went over. I think I just handed it to him and didn't say anything, and just gave it to him. And then what was funny is maybe 2 months ago he came by the office and gave me the car back, and so now I have the car in my office, and he wrote me a little note saying how much of an impact it made on him, and you just never
Wow.
you do. Whether you're 5 or whether you're 16 or 15 or 17, what you do that impacts somebody, you don't even realize it until maybe even years later. It's pretty cool story.
That's awesome. That is really cool. And he kept it through all these years. And he was a police officer, so it's really cool that you gave it to him. So Mari wants to know, what have you been up to during quarantine?
Oh man, what have I been up to? It depends on the day. I've been doing a bunch of these calls like this, or Zoom calls with. I feel like I've had so many Zoom meetings, I don't even know what to do with myself anymore. So a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of telephone calls. One day I called 60 senior pastors across the state and just kind of checked in, see how they're doing, if they need any help getting their live stream stuff up. That was early on. So it's just been, each day's been different. And so it's been crazy, but it's been good. Trying to stay home, but that's hard, you know.
Yeah.
So
Wow. Lots of Zoom calls.
yes, too many Zoom calls to want to talk about. Some of them 4.5 hour long meetings, and yeah,
Wow.
but it's good.
Yeah. So just for the people who don't know exactly what you know, what they don't know exactly what you do. Obviously, a lot of people know that you were the camp director,
Yep.
and so what's kind of like your roles
Sure.
in Minnesota?
Yeah. So to kind of put it into a interesting perspective. So I youth pastored for 20 years at one church in Cold Spring, and now what I've done is I've taken over kind of oversight over 250 churches, all of the youth programs in a sense, which doesn't necessarily mean a ton. Like with Justin here, I am kind of in a sense have oversight over him, but he can do whatever he wants, and he kind of answers to his pastor. So I plan camps and I plan youth conventions and retreats and things like that. I try to help,
NYC.
yeah, I try to help youth pastors that maybe are struggling or not knowing what to do or have questions, or kind of come alongside them. Churches that maybe don't have youth ministries at all, I try to help them get maybe something going or give them some resources. I work in some spots with churches maybe that are struggling through some different circumstances, things that are going on, and so it's different. I travel a lot, speak in different youth groups when we're able to, across the state, even sometimes across the country, whether it's their youth
Wow.
conventions or things like that. So I get across out of the country 3 or 4 times a year for like missions things that I've got to be on, and so yeah, it's different. It's busy, but it's good.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I really want to join you for one of the times that you take youth pastors somewhere on a missions trip.
We love that.
So one of the questions is, What is the craziest story that you can think of from camp?
From when I was a camper or from what I've been doing now? Because I've got stories from.
How about both?
Well, here's an interesting story from. So when I was a camper, there was a game the rec guys used to do. It was called, or I don't know if it had a name, but they drove this red van around, and they would honk the horn, and whatever team could get 10 people to the van first would get points for their team. And so one year I was, as a camper, I drove my van to camp, and my van happened to be red as well. And so one night at about 2 in the morning, I thought, for some reason, I got a crazy idea that thought it'd be a good idea to go out and honk my van, the horn on my van, to see if kids would run to my van and get points. And so I did, and we had kids coming out, running out in their underwear, their boxers and their whatever they were wearing to bed that night. And so that didn't go over super well with the camp.
Mm-hmm.
But it was good, for the most part. So that was kind of probably the craziest thing, that happened while I was there on my end. And in this role, it is interesting to see the different things that happen. I mean, the craziest thing in a cool way is the lives that are changed. I mean, to hear the stories of kids that when they came to camp and then when they go home, and then months later, even what God's done in their life. I mean, that's the coolest and the craziest, because you just look at where they came from and you go, man, there's no way that you're going in that we thought things were going to be different in 6 months, but God got a hold of life, And so those are the best stories. And then you got where you're sending kids home and, things like that you don't enjoy as much because you never want someone leave. But I remember I was sitting at when I was a youth pastor, I brought some kids with, and I remember one of the kids going, he'd gotten in trouble, he'd brought some drugs with, and so he'd been smoking. And I remember sitting in the office, and he looked at me and he goes, "Kirby, I effing hate you." And he didn't say effing, he used the words. And I remember that moment I said, buddy, I understand you're ticked. I like you and appreciate you and whatever. I'm not mad. We just have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
What was interesting is last summer he asked me to do his wedding. But at that
wow,
he was like so ticked. But you realize even in those moments that, just the process people are going through and we're in the long term where it maybe ends up, even though maybe you had to be the bad guy at some point in their life. So.
yeah. Wow, that's so cool. Somebody that was mad at you, and now they're asking you to do their wedding. So did you say no?
Right. I said, not a chance. No way. I'm still mad at you. So.
Well, we got some people watching on Instagram Live, and then also we actually have more people on YouTube.
Oh, really? Cool.
Students that might not have Instagram or something.
Right.
But we have some questions. So, favorite sport?
Wow.
Okay. To watch.
So that to watch. Now, someone asked me a question the other day, like, if you had to choose one sport to watch and you had to watch it, that was the only one you could watch, you couldn't watch any others. That's a different answer than my favorite sport. Because I'd say baseball in that sense, because there's so many games, I would have more season to watch. So, But favorite sport to watch is hockey, I would say. I'm a big Wild. I actually coached high school hockey for 15 years, and I still coach even to this day. I coached my daughter's 15 and under team this last year, and my 8-year-old daughter. Yeah. So I'm a big hockey guy. But I love every sport. Wild, Vikings, T-Wolves, Gophers, Twins, you name it, I'm in.
Did you play any sports in high school?
I did. I played baseball. Actually got a baseball scholarship out of high school.
What?
And then hockey was my main sport. I was the best at hockey. When I was 16, I flew out to the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs for 10 days and tried out for the under 16 team. They only invite 60 kids in the country. And I was invited to go out there and be a part of that. So that was probably the one I was actually the best at.
Wow.
So.
What position did you play?
I was a defenseman.
Okay.
So. And I played a little soccer in college, and I played baseball in college. So.
Wow. For some reason, I wouldn't think that you'd be a soccer guy.
What was interesting is I'd never played soccer until college, but they were looking for some bodies And so I went out for the team, and I ended up starting every game. I wasn't very good, but I played defense. I just need to keep the guy away from the net, and I was able to do that by bumping into him and causing havoc. They didn't like playing against me. I wasn't good at when the ball came to me necessarily. I could clear it out, but I wasn't going to beat anybody with any great moves. I had one college goal though.
Wow.
Penalty kick. I was able to sneak one home, or I mean not a penalty kick, but a corner kick, and I happened to it found me in the right spot, and so I can say that my career has one college goal in soccer, which you would never have thought that would ever happen. So,
did you get a lot of penalties?
I was able to use my body enough to knock people over, but not get enough. I didn't get a ton of yellow cards or red cards. I was able to avoid those. So I played 2 years actually. So they would blow the whistle on me, but not enough to give me a card. So
yeah. All right. So Mari asked another question. What inspired you to do camp and get into ministry?
Great question. So here's kind of the thing. So I grew up in a pastor's home, but didn't necessarily want to be a pastor myself. And so I wasn't against it. It wasn't like I hated it, but it wasn't something I felt like I wanted to do. And actually, so I went away to college, was playing baseball, didn't know what I was going to do. I was actually, after my first year, things kind of just didn't work out. So I transferred up to North Central just to take some generals and get that done. And I was a youth leader at a church, and I'd been reading and studying and whatever, praying and whatever. And I came across a verse in the Bible that said that God will give you the desires of your heart. And I started to think about that a little more, going, what is it that I love? What did God put in my heart that I loved? Loved doing. Mm-hmm. And in the process, I came up with 3 things I really loved. I loved God, I love sports, and I love teenagers. And so I didn't know what that meant. I was kind of clueless on it. But so I remember I was at a Wednesday night. I was a youth leader at our church, and the youth pastor said, "Hey, man, if you just want more to God tonight, come to the front." And I remember I came to the front. There was like 3 of us that came. It wasn't like and I was a leader, and there was like 2 students. And I remember praying that night, and God just got a hold of my heart that night at a youth service when I was like in my 3rd year of college. And it spoke.
Wow.
And I started putting all those pieces together, going, man, I could use the talents and the abilities I have in coaching and sports. I could do ministry and tell people about Jesus, and I could do that as a youth pastor. And all of those pieces kind of came together, and that's kind of how it all worked out. But it took me a while to get there. So I don't think, as a student, you need to look at and try to go, what am I going to do? What am I going to figure out? But I think as a process, just go through the process. I think God will never, if you're seeking Him, He's not going to lead you down the wrong path. He's going to lead you down the right path, and you're going to know what to do. And so that's what I'd say on that.
Okay, how about top 3 places in the U.S. that you would want to travel to after COVID? After COVID happens.
Not during COVID. I was going to say New York would be one during COVID. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, interesting fact about me is I've been to all 50 states. So my last one was Maine. That was my last state I got to, which was when I turned 40.
So your least favorite state? My
favorite state is, what's really cool? I'll tell you what, Alaska's cool. I'd love to go back to Alaska. I'd love to go. I'm not a warm weather guy, and so I'd love to do something that had mountains. So maybe like a mountain range I haven't spent any time in. I've driven through a lot of them, but I'm not like just kind of got out and hung out for a long time. I'd love to maybe do Colorado or something like that. I'd love to go northern Maine. I haven't done northern Maine. I think that would be really cool.
Wow. Northern Maine would be beautiful.
Yes, I think it would.
Beautiful. All right, guys, if you have any more questions, keep asking them. We're going to keep talking and asking questions down the list. I'm just going down the comments here. Oh, Colorado Springs, beautiful mountains.
Yes, they do.
That's true.
That's where I was on that when I was 16 in the Olympic Trench. I was in Colorado Springs, so that was cool to just sit there for 10 days, and you'd walk out in the mountains. Were there. It was awesome.
Wow. So what's like your favorite gymnastics move that you can do?
My favorite gymnastics move? Well, I think the only one that I'm able to do anymore is probably not anymore, ever was a cartwheel. And I don't even know if that's a gymnastics move or not, but I know they do those back handsprings and things like that. I don't think that I would be able to do that. The splits, I think you guys would be surprised to know that on purpose anyway. But yeah, favorite gymnastics move would probably, I mean, if I could do one, like if I could do a gymnastics move, I think I would love to do the rings where those guys hang and they can pull themselves up.
Yep.
I mean, and how strong they are. I wish I was that strong. That would be the one I wish I could do, is some of those things.
Oh, you're that strong, Kirby.
Strong,
I believe in you.
Strong smelling, maybe, but that's about all I have, but that doesn't get me there.
Tiffany wants to see that on video.
Oh, man.
You doing the splits.
Yeah, that would be – I can probably get down – no, I can't get down anywhere near. I can't. So,
Mari wants to know, do you watch volleyball and softball?
Yes, dude. Love volleyball. I love to watch volleyball. I loved watching high school kids when I was youth pastor. Just because, man, the girls, the power they have, the plays they were able to make, the digs, the blocks, was so fun to watch. Love to watch it in the Olympics. I see Olympic on there. Dude, when those guys get up and those girls get up, it is amazing. Actually, I watched a little video the other day on how do they strengthen their muscles to jump, which was interesting. I didn't watch the whole thing, but it was interesting. Like, how do they get to be able to jump so high? And because I'm intrigued, how can these guys get up so high to slam a ball down? But yeah, love softball just as much as baseball. In fact, when the Gophers last year were in the NCAA tournament, I stopped everything and watched the Gopher softball women play in the NCAA tournament. And so yeah,
wow,
I love those. So
that's really cool. What's up, Angie, tuning in? If you have any questions, pop them down in the comments. Well, one of the things that I really appreciate about you is how just you're just funny. And so do you have like a joke? Like, what's the best joke that's coming to your mind right now?
Well, the other day before these restaurants closed, I was in a restaurant and it took a little while to get seated because it was busy. And I remember the lady came over and she said, "Hey, sorry about your weight." And I said, "You should have saw me 15 pounds ago." I thought that could have been insulting, but I didn't take it in an insulting way.
Yeah.
So
that wasn't very sensitive of her.
No, it wasn't. Someone should teach her, proper etiquette and that kind of stuff. That's just was not okay. Most people would have been offended, but I worked past it.
Did you get triggered?
Do I get what?
Did you get triggered?
What's trigger?
Triggered. Like
triggered. I thought.
Yeah.
I was like, what is trigger? I don't even. Is that like something to eat? Triggered. No. Yeah.
Do you like Starbucks, or what's your favorite kind of coffee?
Okay, so Starbucks. I like Starbucks, but I don't drink any coffee. So I am like if I get there, I go like a vanilla bean frappuccino. So actually, my wife took my daughter. They just ran to Starbucks now. They may bring me one back, and that would be amazing. So
what?
I know. I might.
They're at Starbucks right now.
They just drove. I don't know if they're there yet, but they're on their way. So,
man, I'm jealous. I want some Starbucks right now. All right, so Nikki's one of our youth leaders, and she wants to know, what's your favorite place to preach?
Favorite place to preach? Oh, man.
I mean, other than Maranatha, of course.
Right. That's a great question. I'll say this. It's fun to go back to the youth group I pastored in for 20 years. And youth pastor there. That was fun. I did that once. That was cool. Just because there's so many faces I recognize. Now it's so different because everywhere I go, it's people I don't know. A lot of times I know like the youth pastor or a couple of kids, but I recognize some faces, but don't know a lot of people. So it's weird. I would say, like some people say, well, do you love preaching in front of, big youth conventions? Like I just did New York's youth convention, last year. But yeah, I don't know if I enjoy. I mean, it's fun, but it's not my favorite.
Did you get COVID?
I did not. It was before COVID, so I was okay. I was lucky enough to sneak out. But I don't know. I love going to places where I love Minnesota. And I love speaking to Minnesota youth groups and things like that because I have a relationship, So
yeah,
for sure.
Lily, you can ask a question if you want. Anybody, we need some more questions. Some more really interesting questions. to put Kirby on the spot.
Right. Yeah, I love the spot. You know, I went to the grocery store the other day, and they said, "Do you want your milk in a bag?" I said, "No, just keep it in the carton." I thought that was weird that they were just going to pour my milk into a bag, but so
Yeah, that's weird.
yeah, some of the stuff that people ask, you just wonder, like, why are you asking me that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Um, favorite Bible verse? Mari wants to know. Oh, and Nikki asked
So,
on YouTube. Oh,
so just a sec here. I don't even know how this is happening right now. I've never in my life gotten a FaceTime call on my computer, and I'm getting one right now. I don't even know how. I didn't even know I could do that. Favorite Bible verse? It's hard to get away from John 3:16. You know, I mean, that's what it's all about. You know, so I'd say that's one of my favorites. Genesis 4:7. Love that verse. That says, "Sin is crouching at your door, desires to have you, but you must master it." You know, just that whole idea. Like, if you do what is, it says, if you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do what is wrong, sin is crouching at your door, it desires to have you, but you must master it. That whole concept of, man, the things that are going on in my life, for anybody's life, that God's saying, hey, man, master that. Like, make sure that thing doesn't destroy you. Get control of it. So that's one of my favorite.
yeah. Well, on that same subject, Jasmine is asking, do you have any advice for people that is down in the dumps?
Oh, man, I would say this. I would say seek out one, spend some time with God on that for sure. You know, God is the thing. He knows you. He knows your friend or whoever it is that's kind of feeling that way. And so that's the first place to go. So many times we turn to other people and we try to get their response, and we miss out on what God's trying to say about us. So try and find a verse that you can grab hold of and just go, all right, I'm going to pray this through. I'm going to talk this. I'm going to pray this verse, or for my situation. But then, you know, sometimes we need, you know, it's good to have somebody else. So I would say, look at and really hone in on the right type of person that you're going to talk to. Sometimes we talk to people that are just going to push us farther down into the dumps. And so find the right person to just kind of reach out to and say, hey, here's how I'm feeling. Here's what's going on. You know, sometimes a change of scenery helps. Whether that's, if you're stuck in, you know, people, music really plays into a lot of that. I think a lot of times there's a reason they put soundtracks behind movies, is because, you know, the action's happening. They wants you to feel it and experience it. I think the same thing when we're feeling it. Man, change this type of music you listen to. Man, throw on some worship music, do some things. So I think that just helps set the attitude and the atmosphere. One, for you maybe to connect with God, but it also, man, if it's always negative and the music you listen to is tearing you down, a lot of times that can really have a play on stuff too. So
yeah. How about Angie wants to know a bucket list for mission trips?
Bucket list. Man, someday I want to go to Russia. That is somewhere I want to go someday. I don't know if China is on my bucket list yet. But maybe someday. No, I would love to do China. I would love to do. I've been to 36 countries, and so I'd love to do China. I'd love to do Russia. Those are two places. I would say one place that was really cool to go is Cambodia. Was one of my favorite places, just because there's so much history of things I didn't realize that happened even while I was alive. You know, just the mass graves from a regime that killed a lot of people, and you just are like, you know, hearing the story and then seeing what God's doing. You know, some of the places, their cities actually are on water, and so all the houses are built and the schools are built on water, and so like floating schools and floating villages, which was really interesting. So you, like, one of the times I was there, I've only been there once, but we were on a boat, and these kids were paddling to school, and it was like a 6-year-old and a 5-year-old in a boat, and the boat had a hole in it, and the 5-year-old's up front bailing water out while the 6-year-old's paddling him to school. I mean, and there's, you know, alligators or crocodiles or whatever they have in that area. I mean, all of these stuff, and you just think, man, I don't know if I'd ever let my 6-year-old just hop in a boat. I don't have a 6-year-old, but if I had one now, hop in a boat, you know, with their 5-year-old brother that had a hole in it, and let them go anywhere, let alone in a boat by themselves in a canoe, you know. So it was just interesting and crazy.
Oh my gosh. Well, I have one last question, and I just want to know who is your favorite youth pastor, like in Forest Lake?
Oh my goodness, it's not even a doubt question. I mean, Justin Fury is the most amazing youth pastor ever. Um, I tell you what, if
In
you're in
Forest Lake.
a youth group, you need to be there. If you've not met him yet, you need to find a way to figure out how to connect with him. By far, I mean, there's not even a number two. I can't even. There's probably not even a number two youth pastor. There's only one that's on the list at all up there. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's true. I agree. I agree. Well, hopefully, I can be even 10% of a legend as you. So,
Oh man, I there's no doubt in my mind you if that you already are. So so
thanks for being on with us,
yeah, this is awesome. Love doing this.
having a lunch break
Do you do
with
this
you guys
all the time?
every Friday.
Oh, fun. That's really cool. What a cool way to connect with students.
Yeah, it's been great.
Awesome, man.
Well,